Now, this is Business Breakfast coming to you live from our studios here. Let's get straight now. Going by a recent report, more than 50 Nigerian manufacturing companies closed shop in the last 5 years. Furthermore, the International Center for Investigative Reporting revealed that majority of the shut down industries are located in Lagos, Ota, and Agbara in Ogun State, just in Plateau, Bauchi, Kano, Anambra State, and other parts of Nigeria. Financial analysts have predicted that many more industries will shut down due to the foreign exchange crisis and poor industrial planning. Well, currently dollar exchanging for around 550 naira in the parallel market, while a liter of diesel costs between 600 naira to 700 naira across filling stations nationwide. According to Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, the country's energy capacity utilization stood at 49.5% in 2020, while that of South Africa stood at 82%. In 2021. So let's get talking right now, make sense of this current development in this conversation. Gospel Belly, Research and Development Economist, joins us now. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Yeah. Let's start by, examining or just examine the situation and the current economic crunch that is biting hand on some of these businesses. Apart from the issue of, we get to issue of the Forex crisis and the power crisis that this report attributed the current challenges that companies have faced at the moment. But overall, where do you think the country is missing it?
Yes, so thank you for the question and great to be here as well. My thoughts are very simple on this. Nigeria right now, as it stands, even tilting that conversation to a regional standpoint, do not have the right structural shock absorbers, so to say, to take in global shocks and to manage the impact of these shocks on the productive stream of the economy. But it's also important for me to create context here that globally, all right, investors and manufacturing giants are shifting plans of emerging and more volatile markets. So what you have is investors are seeking to set up plants in countries and markets that are closer to their homes than in further markets, where they will probably seek to leverage labor capital and the likes, as they've done over the years. So that's changing, and the World Bank termed that as de-globalization. Well, in as much as that's a factual statement, I don't think also that's the realistic set of things. Impact has tripled down because we don't have.
Hello, Mr. Abele. I don't know if you can hear me. Hello, Mr. Abele. Are you still there?
I can hear you clearly.
Okay.
Very clearly, I can hear you clearly. Yeah, so this trend we're seeing is a global trend that hampers more heavily on the Nigerian space because of where we are on the developmental/productivity ladder, which is also a function of the structural dynamics you have in place, to stay competitive in the global market. So I'm not surprised that this is happening. I'm only surprised.
Hello, Mr. Abele. Well, I guess we're having issues with connecting with Mr. Abele.
Hello, I can hear you clearly.
Oh, okay. You're back. All right. Please continue with your thoughts.
Yes, I was saying that this is just a function of the fact that Nigeria is still very low at the developmental ladder, and the fact that we don't have the right structural buffers, or we're not competitively facing enough for productivity. As such, we would be the first thing any major intentional or serious investor would take out of the table when considering the worst or cost benefit situations in the times we live in. So we need to do more around fixing the structurals. We need to do more around, building a more competitively facing economy for productivity, as well as, enabling the fact that shock absorbers will sort of pace itself in terms of impact on the economy and all of that. So the major things need to be done before we start asking ourselves questions around why are manufacturers leaving.
So when you talk about structural issues facing the country, where did you think we got it wrong? Is it from a policy formulation or implementation?
Where we got it wrong, I think it's just the institutional and ideological structure that we thrive with on a daily basis. And it's not just a function of the political economy, it's a comprehensive it's a comprehensive function of the Nigerian people. We are largely extractive than inclusive in our approach to life as a people. So if a subset of those people make the political class, you expect that ideology to extend at a more comprehensive level, the mainstay. So we're not so much of the people who design policies, infrastructure, and ensure the right things are in place to scale critical mass productivity. And that's the idea of inclusion. All right. What we've seen is that there's some form of political nonchalancy, there's a form of inactions, there's a form of even the actions that are put out there are not done in such a way that sustainability is a focus and productivity is a focus. So it's largely a cultural and ideological thing, first of all. Society.
And Mr. Billy, permit me to jump in here. And did you think we're beginning to talk about this? Do you think we should start leading or talking about these particular issues you've raised now? And how seriously do you think the government is looking in that direction to spur up conversation or stir up conversation among its stakeholders and of course other private partners?
Yeah, so this conversation has been ongoing for a long time. I have been talking about it. Imagination, we're talking about it. NESG have been talking about it. Critical think tanks globally have been talking about it. There was a national confab during the last administration. They were talking about it. Every summit is talking about it. I think there's even a talk fatigue when it comes to this conversation, and the government knows what to do. All right, the advisors are probably been talking about it too. But the ideology, the culture, the people, the behavioral patterns around moving from talk to action is not in place. And that's why I talked about the ideology first of all. And it all boils down to extractive institutional ideology than inclusive institutional ideology. So until these ideologies are shifted and we move from talk to action, we will not see any critical changes, no matter who gets into government or looking at past administrations as well. So we just need to take the right action with discipline and the right infrastructure. We'll create the right structural dynamics to win in the times that we're in.
Are you inferring that the government exactly knows what to do in times like these and perhaps ignore the consequences without doing them or addressing them?
What I'm trying to say is that it's not just a conversation of in times like this. I mean, the times we are in, we've seen similar times like this, coming from the SAP era to the early 90s, to the late 90s, to the early millennium, and all of that. And hitherto till now, all right, we've seen different dynamics of events and global activities and regional and national activities to tell us that we need to build the right structures against global shocks. We need to create an enabling environment so that manufacturers are not frustrated or businesses or startups are not frustrated to take out their businesses. We need to think of newer ways. In fact, there's a new wave of Nigeria.
Oh, okay. I'll get back to this in a moment, Mr. Bele, but let's dwell more on some of these issues, especially the Forex crisis and the issue of power. But let's dwell on Forex crisis in the meantime. Let's look at the ideal Forex regime. What should ideal Forex regime should be from what we have? I know that a couple of institutional world institutions have come up, like IMF and World Bank have all suggested in the past to the CBN to see how they can maintain a single exchange rate, a unified exchange rate. But how possible is that, looking at the current reality, how peculiar these challenges are with Nigeria at the moment?
Well, it's not impossible. But the Nigerian people have to be ready for that critical cycle of change. And it changes. I know it sounds like motivational stuff, but until it changes in the mind and ideology of the people, it cannot change in the actions, policy, structure, and the doing business processes of the people. It's very simple. You hear conversations like this person is an American citizen, you cannot do anything to this person. You hear conversations like so and so country, just so and so, because this is what they believe. So it starts on what they believe, reflected in their actions, policies, and structures to scale the possibilities of making things work in that environment. So I think we have what it takes, but I don't think that we are ready for that change yet. And that's where I stand on that position.
Well, let's look at the consequences of not, addressing some of these issues, especially with the Forex instability in the Forex market at the moment. I mean, let's look at the consequences and what the country stands to lose, given the fact that a number of these companies are leaving.
Yeah, it's important for me to also state that the function or the productivity of an economy, or the productivity of a currency, the value of the currency is a function of the productivity in an economy. All right. So the level of productivity you have in an economy would shape the value of your currency and the perceived value or the competitiveness of that currency in the global space. One of the major reasons why Nigeria is having a core FX issue is that, first of all, we're not a productive economy. So we're not productive economy enough to produce things that are needed outside the country, such that our exports window are in such a way, facilitated for, more revenue earnings and all that. And on the flip side, even if you're doing a lot more around production, SME space, all right, to drive for export. So that's already affecting the supply side of the currency. On the flip side, we're a highly import dependent and, economy, which already pressures heavily on the demand for the foreign exchange.
Hello, Mr. Bele. Hello, Mr. Bele, can you hear me?
Levels, or those two structural legs are fixed. We cannot make any significant advancement when it comes to FX crisis in Nigeria.
Well, interesting, and some of the points you've highlighted there. I mean, I cannot, we cannot emphasize some of these issues, more than what you've said again. But let's look at some of the things the CBN has done in the past to, strengthen the Forex market and again the value of the naira. Recently, they came up with the $200 billion US dollars, and again we also saw about 5 naira per $1 US remittances for people again who should take advantage of that. I mean, there's also a bit of intervention in the Forex market for manufacturers and small businesses as well. I mean, do we say these initiatives have impacted or have not impacted the market as well at all?
Okay, so the idea of growing markets and developing markets come from different angles. You have the human capital bit that we talk about, the skills. You have the infrastructure bit. You cannot advance or grow a market without the right infrastructure. You also have the level of productivity in the economy, which also informs income levels and quality of purchasing power. As a critical response, to the buying and selling and, affiliating with Nigerian SMEs and all of that in that space. So all of those critical blocks, and again, how much of all of those dynamics are interfacing with the global business and global markets environment. So even if you're doing very well on all of these local variables, how much are you positioning your own people with your own skills, with your own infrastructure to compete globally, such that you can earn foreign exchange and you can grow your national reputation as a place to do business, which is why corporates are going to China, people are moving to the United States, Vietnam is a new destination, Taiwan is looking like a new destination, because there's a national positioning, for doing business. So all of these dynamics need to be in place. Currently, what we've seen is that business stakeholders have been much more resilient around their core, around their why, than government seeking to enable a critical chunk of people, to scale their aspirations in doing business. All right. So resilience by the average Nigerian has to meet with the right government structures, the right government institutions, and the right access to market solutions. All right. To scale the required blend, all right, for improved chances of ease of doing business, for improved chances of revenue, and for improved chances of global reputational value. If we go in that direction, it's a lot more easier to pace. It's a lot more easier to pace the scale of global shocks on the national economy than what we currently have, which is a more vulnerable and an unwise situation to be in.
Well, I think we need to leave it there. Thank you so much, Gospel Bele.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Gospel Bele is a research and development economist. Thank you for your time on Business Breakfast. And again, just to wish you, happy birthday, belated.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Of course, in the new Nigeria that we all expect, hope to give you something to celebrate as you add 1 year to your year.
Thank you very much.
You for
looking forward, by God's grace.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.